All right.
Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I hope the daylight savings time hasn't confused you all with this time, with the start time today, but nevertheless, you're all here, which is great. There's going to be a few more people coming through as we start this, so that's all fine too. Today, we're very grateful to have our speaker, Francez Mendez, who is zooming in to us today from the Philippines. And we have Peter O'Gorman, who is also coming into us via Mumbai in India. So today, Peter O'Gorman, who is the Community of Practice Leader, will be taking you through today and hosting this webinar for you. So before I hand the reins over to Peter, can you all please make sure that your mics are muted and direct any questions you have throughout that may pop up throughout the webinar through chat or the Q&A, and we'll answer them at the end. Frances has advised that she doesn't have a PowerPoint presentation today, so she's just going to be talking to you straight off of this very smart head of hers. And like I said, if you can keep your questions we'll answer your questions towards the end, that would be great. So Pete, are you there? I can't see you anymore. I can see you're muted. And
yeah, hang on.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
So I'll hand it over to you, Pete, and thanks again, Frances, and I'll come back later at the end of the webinar.
Yeah, hi everyone. I think the last meetup was back in July, was it, Kylie? And we did a presentation on AI techniques for Twitter to help monitor sentiment analysis, specifically for things like campaign management and that sort of thing. So, and I think that the meetup before that, we spoke about driverless cars. So really, really technical stuff. And I know that Kylie has been really keen to do a topic on more along the sort of privacy and legal side of AI. And I saw Frances speaking at an event in the Philippines. It was an IoT summit, again, a very geeky event, lots of gadgets and things like that. But Frances was the only one that did this presentation on the legal side of AI, which is really, really interesting. Yeah, at the end, I'm sure you guys will have a lot of questions. I think the questions that were coming through last time were very technical, but I hope this stirs up some ideas in your head about what some of the, I guess, social, legal repercussions are for the use of AI, especially over the next 5 years. So over to you, Frances.
Okay. Okay, so where do you start? Let's start. So the point that I will try to make here, and I think that you've read it in the poster, that the idea of AI, if not AI itself, will force us to re-examine our idea of and view of humanity, and our laws will have no choice but to catch up. And right now, it is not catching up. So first, the order of my presentation is first to determine what the law is in general and why the laws are created. And then we will talk about why technology makes laws and its applications problematic. And then we'll go to how our values are changing because of technology and how these changes affect our laws. And then we'll go to some theories posed by some AI experts and determine what are the legal implications of these theories by our AI experts all over the world. So let's go first. What is law and why are laws created? So the usual answer that I hear when I ask random people about this question is that laws deter people from doing unacceptable things. And the law is a way of imposing a specific standard of conduct and imposing or enforcing such standard of conduct in a community whose members theoretically share those standards. So in other words, Laws or rules designed to keep people in line. They guide people's actions on the basis of what a particular society deems acceptable based on a standard of conduct at a particular given time. In criminal law, for example, we think of deterring people from taking another person's properties. In most jurisdictions, that is considered as theft or robbery. We think of preventing people from taking another person's life. That usually is considered as homicide or murder. We think of preventing people from forcing sexual intercourse. That's considered as rape. We think of preventing people from taking advantage of other people. Now, how do societies force people to abide by these standards of conduct? Those who fail to meet these standards of conduct may be imposed a fine. In other words, by taking away their property, the transgressor may be imprisoned. Or in other words, the sovereign or the person in power or the institution in power, usually the government, will take away the liberty. And believe it or not, there are still some jurisdictions that impose death penalty. And in that case, the offender's life is taken away. So one case here in the Philippines described the purpose of criminal law or criminal action as, and I quote, to punish the offender in order to deter him and others from committing the same or similar offense, to isolate him from the society, reform and rehabilitate him, or in general, to maintain social order. So for criminal law then, law is an order backed by force by an entity who has the power of enforcement. But laws do not just pertain to crimes. The laws are not limited to criminal law. We have, for example, laws on contracts and constitutional law. These laws do not isolate you from society. They will not reform or rehabilitate you. They will not punish you, but they will facilitate your actions. So in the case of contracts, the law provides rules as to what elements must be present in order for the contract to be enforceable. There must, say, a subject, there must be a consent, there must be consideration. So the law also gives effects to certain rights and obligations upon the existence of certain circumstances. So in some jurisdictions, children generally and automatically upon the death of the parent may inherit from their parents. No need for a will, and vice versa. In some jurisdiction, cohabitation is a right among couples who are formally married. People also become liable for unwanted events and damages caused by them, whether or not that damage was intentional. So again, the law guides people's actions not only by threat or punishment, but also by facilitating transactions, relationships, and liabilities. They give people a certain level of certainty as to the effects of their actions. So therefore, when I said initially that law is a tool that guides people's actions on the basis of what society deems acceptable at a particular given time, I was implying that the law reflects the values being held by a particular society at the time when the laws were created. So when we punish murder, it means that the society values life at that time when the law on murder was created. When we punish taking another person's property, it means that the society values ownership. And when rape is punished, it means that the society values consent, a person's autonomy, a person's individuality, personhood. Okay. When we punish people for taking advantage of another person, it means that we as a society recognizes that there is a power struggle between or among people, and that we value equality. So when we recognize contracts that have a perceptible evidence of consent, we also recognize each other's autonomy and freedom as individuals capable of handling their own affairs. Note, however, that I put emphasis on when the laws were created. So I'm saying that the law as a reflection of the values at the time when the laws were created, and not in perpetuity, in recognition of the inevitable changes in values that may transpire in a society as a result of changes in the environment, as a result of changes, in particular, in this case, as a result of changes in technology. Just to cite an example, in the Philippines, participating in a duel is considered a crime until now. When the Philippine Criminal Code was drafted in the 1950s, when the act might have been still relevant, it certainly is not relevant now because who participates in duels right now, and yet it is still in our criminal code. So yeah, we go to why technology makes laws and its applications problematic. The reason is laws do not exist in a vacuum. There is always a context behind why laws are made. So being a reflection of values, it should ideally be as malleable as our values, meaning as our values evolve, so should our laws. The thing is, our values are transformed by different factors, which themselves undergo the process of evolution. One of the most powerful among those factors is technology, and technology is, of course, something that we create and evolve through our own efforts. So you can imagine here some kind of never-ending a feedback loop going on here. Our environment creates us, it changes us. As we change, we transform our environment, and as part of our environment is the technology that we create. And as we create technology, we create something that has the capacity to transform us, to transform our environment, our experiences, and therefore our values, the things that are important to us. So in other words, as we create technology, we create transformations in our environment, causing us to evolve as a species, and in terms of our morality, our values, our lifestyles, our interactions, and therefore ourselves. So whereas before and for many centuries, the stages of our lives are almost predetermined. We are born, we go to school, we become teenagers, young adults, we fall in love, we get married, we create our own families, we take care of our children, and we get sick, and then we die. Suddenly now, with technology and with the idea of AI hanging above our heads, we have to contend with the value of marriage, for example, as reproductive technology, gene editing, egg freezing become more advanced. Suddenly we have to re-examine the value of having children as we increase our lifespans. We re-examine the value of information and ideas become more interconnected, and as reproduction of intangibles, meaning the books we read, the music we listen to, videos, become so much easier to copy. We have to reevaluate the value of physical relationship, and with AI, even the value of actual relationships. So crafters of our constitutional law, of all our laws, our civil law, property laws, probably did not anticipate these gradual changes in values when they first crafted the laws. Technology and concomitantly the things we value and our moral truths advance at a much more rapid pace than our laws, and our laws are not keeping up, so our laws may become obsolete. what happens when the law can't keep up with technology or with the changing values? Of course, we have the courts, and it is up to the courts to interpret laws created at a particular setting and with particular scenarios in mind to circumstances that may not have been anticipated by the crafters of the law. Or courts may try to decide to shift interpretation so as to fit the current scenarios and context. In other words, courts are even more so required to exercise judgment in interpreting an old law using trendier set of values facilitated by technology, which in turn is facilitated by us. How our values will change by technology, and how do these affect our laws? By way of example, and the laws and scenarios affected by technology is by no means limited to what we'll discuss here. We will look into the principle and laws on privacy and property. So for privacy, since our lives are no longer limited offline and the internet, sophisticated data analytics, tracking devices, they have provided avenues for easier privacy intrusions. The context by which our privacy laws apply are no longer limited to search and seizure cases. Search and seizure cases usually focus on when and what items can be seized and be considered illegal, considering an individual's privacy rights. So there may be a balancing of interest going on here. So in some cases, even if, say, for example, illegal drugs or paraphernalia are found in your home, without a search warrant, that drug cannot be used as evidence against you in a criminal case for illegal possession of drugs, because supposedly that search or seizure was a violation of privacy right, even though assuming that the likelihood of you committing the crime you were accused of is high. So balancing of interest, the two contending interests here, number one, the interest of the government to prevent crimes or prevent people from doing particular actions, and the interest of the government to protect individual rights, in this case, privacy. So what happened with the rise of the internet and the impending AI scenarios is we have become, or we realize the importance of our rights, the importance of our privacy. We are so much more aware. That's why we have become more protective of our privacy, and particular about rules on data collection, rules and consent, control of data, public and private distinctions, internet monitoring, biometrics, or anything mobile related. Today, every connection we make using the internet comes at a high price. And you probably all know this. The price is our privacy, our searches, what we buy, what websites we go to, what games we play, where we play it, and what photos we post in social media, what things we say in social media, where did we take the photos we post in social media. Somewhere, some tech company has a record of that and making a business out of those data, which in essence comprise our personalities, which ownership supposedly is not subject to debate, but right now is being subject to debate. And in this age, you would think that there will be a battle between who owns our own personality, our own data, our own information. Information now, after all, is currency, and whoever holds information holds so much power. Now, the main idea about privacy is that the owners of the personal data should be able to control the uses of his or her personal information. The problem is the owners of the personal information now usually don't particularly know when they unwillingly agree to the assignment of uses of their data to another person or another company. The result is that other companies not only control our information, but are able to monetize it. We, the real owners of personal information, get zero in exchange, or maybe in exchange for the use of a website or the use of an app, while the tech companies make millions. So data are currently being mined with little to no effort in an unprecedented speed from the miners or from the people who collect data or from the source. When we use apps or simply when we're connecting to the internet, information such as relationship statuses, gender, preferences, location, biases, interactions, or readily available online. We all know that what big data is. So big data, data of large amounts, data mined for a specific purpose, usually provide insights as to current trends and correlations that cannot or will not be or will be difficult to see using small amounts of data. And this is gold. Again, we have become the products that are being sold in a new market at the cost of our privacy. So as a means of protection, the general privacy law usually requires that any data gathered from individuals must be made with the consent of the owner of the data and only for a specific purpose, meaning the owner of the data must know what the data about him or her will be used for. So if the data will or can be used for another purpose, the consent of the owner will have to be obtained again. That, of course, is important. It's very useful in a liberal society that values individuality, ownership, and personality. But information about us has value, whether or not it can be traced back to us, and independent of the purpose for which it was collected or of the manner by which it was collected. And when I say independent of purpose, it implies that the purpose of collection may be different from what information can be, what information or what conclusion can be had based on the data gathered. So the other side of the coin, this poses a problem and says a lot about privacy laws. So this is the other side of the coin. Our privacy laws fail to take into account the acceleration of data collection and the use, and that secondary uses of data may actually be broader and useful to society. As an example, we find a correlation between, based on the data, and this is hypothetical. Say, for example, we find a correlation between the presence of specific people, A and B, in Hyde Park in London and the occurrence of an earthquake 2 months later somewhere in Cambodia. We cannot know for sure how these two facts are related, but based on the data gathered, there is a correlation which can be useful and might even save lives. But to gather the consent of those people would be logistically impractical. So another threat to our privacy is over-reliance on data, particularly when used to predict behavior. Some of you may have already watched Tom Cruise movie Minority Report, where they are able to predict already when people would commit a crime, future crime. So in current times, it would be very, very appalling for a government to prosecute or incarcerate someone for a crime he or she would have only a probability of committing but has not yet committed. So future crime. Why? It robs individuals of their choices. Over lines of data could, however, make that situation possible and may or had already led to instances or even a policy of profiling, harassment, discrimination, unwarranted shaming, and more privacy intrusions. You can determine the degree of distaste a society has for particular behavior by looking at the repercussions they impose upon those behaviors. So we'll look at penalties. Some jurisdictions impose penalties higher than a degree or more for the same crimes, but committed using technology. So as an example, taking advantage of someone, swindling. When committed using the internet will in some jurisdiction give rise to a penalty of 5 years imprisonment instead of just 3 if not committed using modern technology. The same goes for privacy violations. Excuse me. Okay, sorry about that. As I was saying, some jurisdictions impose higher penalties for crimes or actions committed using the technology compared to actions committed without technology. So one would think that there would be a moral equivalence between the same act of swindling or price intrusion. Therefore, the manner of committing would not matter. However, as explained in one case here, and I quote, there exists a substantial distinction between crimes committed through the use of information and communications technology and similar crimes committed using other means. In using the technology, the offender often evades identification and is able to reach far more victims or cause greater harm. The distinction therefore creates a basis for higher penalties for cyber crimes. So because of the internet, we have just that actions can have more severe repercussions than before, particularly actions done online. Actions now easily cross borders, and as a result, some jurisdictions decide to punish crimes more severely if they are done online, cybercrime law. In punishing online crimes more severely, we are also implying that the damage is less if they are committed offline, with the reach provided by technology to other forms of punishment or gaining ground. Say, for example, public shaming. Will it become the new death penalty or life imprisonment? With our level of interconnectedness, it is so much easier now to punish people with so much more effectiveness than our current fine or prison system. At least that was what was implied in John Ross's book. So you've been publicly shamed. Why is this wrong for us? So public shaming as a form of punishment not only exposes your authentic self, but also your fabricated selves, the ones created by the public.
I can't hear you, Kylie.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. She froze and disappeared. I've lost
Okay,
your
I can hear
video.
you now.
So-
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay.
She'll connect back in.
Okay.
Might be the Philippines too. It's not the best at reception.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you're right. No, just let them know.
Good time for a potty break.
I'll say that. Anyone who's I might just pause recording. That's okay. No problem. Sometimes
Quite surprised that we lasted so long. Actually, I thought the connection would be worse.
All right. So
Okay, can we continue?
yes,
Sure.
please. Wonderful. Thanks.
All right. Are we on?
Yeah, we're on. Off you go.
All right. So I'm sorry about that. I lost connection, obviously. So as I was saying, we are trying to analyze all these things based on what we value right now. And right now, we generally adopt liberal values. We value privacy. And as I've said earlier, though, our values evolve. And based on that premise, was to say, for example, that democracy or any other form of government that is popular right now will be the end all be all of all forms of government. Who is to say that individuality will still matter in the future? We value privacy because we put primacy to liberal ideology, which values human experience, which values free will, which, by the way, is still subject to debate. The idea that we are agents of our own actions, that how we act is based on our own choices, based on consideration of known facts. So who is to say that the way we put primacy to privacy now is how privacy would still be treated in the future, especially now as it appears that we are transitioning into developing network systems or even network societies. In Jeff Stigl's book, Breakpoint, he discussed the power of network systems and how and why networks perform so much better than the individuals that comprise them. Others call it swarm systems, wherein there is no central government or leadership that makes a command. Each individual is considered autonomous, just like bees and beehives, which are adaptable. So these network systems theoretically should be adaptable and resilient and stable, that doesn't allow one malfunction to affect the whole system. Humans and societies created by humans, we already have a natural tendency to network, to socialize, and to cooperate, even on a large scale. And this is what, I guess, makes us different from most animals. So Stiglitz suggests that in the future, in order to become more successful as a species, and in response to the need to become a smarter society, maybe as a society we will be able to function so much better if we are more networked. And that comes at a price. According to Sibyl, the success of a network depends on communication and self-organization, meaning, again, leadership has to be decentralized, just like the internet is still is at the moment. So everybody has his or her own functions and knows what he or she is supposed to do with no instruction and non-private because everybody has to contribute and pass on information. So this is highly likely, especially when time comes that our brains are connected to the computer. So imagine this scenario, the level of our interconnectedness in the age of AI. Suddenly, connectedness at the cerebral level is not far from course. With neural laces, it'd be possible to connect our brains to computers, to our own devices. What happens now to privacy in that scenario? We protect our privacy when there's an expectation of privacy. The more we become connected, the more we lose that expectation. And the more we give up our privacy rights. We are work for our lawmakers, or if our lawmakers can't keep up, our judiciary will have to create more jurisprudence, reevaluating how we actually value or control of our data. We may have to make more distinctions as to what constitutes private and public spheres. We may even be forced to evaluate whether or not identity and other liberal values will actually still be important. Now, these are just questions that we may be asked, or we must ask ourselves. It is, I would say, a possibility that societies will become more utilitarian or consequentialist in their approaches to laws, to morals, and values as well. In legal theory, consequentialism or utilitarianism means value and legal morality is evaluated based on the result. The end goal being the preservation of the system as a whole and not the individual. So the downside of this is we might not actually see individuals as individuals that they are. We see them only as part of a larger society that is disposable, just like bees in a beehive. So after all, the whole system will function anyway without them. So those are the current issues, current legal issues that we may have to face in relation to privacy. Now we go to private property. And in private property, I think the most relevant here is intellectual property, because intellectual property is so much easier to copy. And we're now seeing the devaluation of property rights in this information-based and interconnected world. Information is becoming easier to access, and therefore applying neoliberal approaches to evaluating property using the supply and demand. The question now is, will copyright law still be relevant? Is it still right to give copyright protection for as long as the lifetime of the author plus 50 years? Now, with regard to inventions, should we still give monopoly to the inventor for as long as 20 years? In theory and in most laws, inventions are given patent if they have an inventive step. And an inventive step means something that, quote unquote, is not obvious to a person who is skilled in the art when the inventor filed his patent claim. Again, is it still right to protect inventions for 20 years from the filing date when discoveries and inventions are so much more easily created now, with more people having more access to more and more information? More and more inventions lose the quality of being innovative, or lose the requirement of inventive step, or something that is not obvious to a person who is skilled in the art now. So especially with the internet, anything can so easily become more obvious to a person skilled in the art at a shorter period of time, definitely shorter than 20 years. And you can imagine how today's innovations can so easily become a building block knowledge in the future. Currently, we're experiencing rapid, very fast technological changes, and the law we're still applying is based on a time when technology was several exponents less advanced than 1995, when the TRIPS agreement was made effective. Just imagine Moore's law being applied from that year until now, wherein Moore's law says the speed of computation becomes 100% faster for every 2 years, 1 year. So yeah, those are pressing questions about privacy. We go to AI as technology. The context of the landscape around which laws are created, and of course, the values that we cherish. So for purpose of this talk, I will be using AI to mean intelligence that approximates human intelligence, or man-made intelligence that passes the Turing test. So I'm thinking of robots that are indistinguishable from humans. They look conscious, they look intelligent, but the difference is they are not born. They are not organic, they're not biological. So the scenarios offered by some AI experts is that AI may threaten our existence, or number two, maybe we create an AI and AI becomes our tool, or AI and humans form a symbiotic relationship. And then the last scenario is AI actually becomes us, or we merge with AI. Okay, so what will be, what legal ramifications am I thinking on these scenarios? So when AI threatens our existence, we think of Elon Musk about AIs running amok, destroying us, or posing existential threats. And any related AI development needs an oversight from somebody to protect our existence. In that case, of course, we don't give AI rights. We might not even allow them to exist. We should create policies and inventions that will prevent them from annihilating us or dethroning us from our status of being the superior species. Why? Because of the principle of self-preservation. What are policies anyway but tools for self-preservation? We may even have to define or redefine our ideas of morality to conform to that principle. So any AI, for example, regardless of whether they look like us, whether they think like us, breathe like us, conscious like us, but who happens to threaten our existence may have no rights, but will be considered as property, public or private. So Westworld scenario, killing them on the spot might not be an issue at all, since they are not humans anyway. And they are quote unquote threats. In that case, killing them would only be an act of self-defense. And raping them wouldn't matter. They are our creations, they are merely tools. So, but what happens if we consider them as conscious, or we discover that they have acquired consciousness? Is it even possible? But in that case, how would we treat them? Would we give them rights? If we give them rights, we may have to contend with the issue of whether or not they have agency, and agency is the premise of our laws. So we prosecute people for acts considered as crime based on the premise that they are agents of their own actions. They have a will, and they intended to do it, and are therefore responsible for consequences that they impose on their actions. So will a conscious AI still be considered a tool, or not an agent of their own actions? Will a conscious AI be considered as someone who is not responsible for his, her actions? Will they be subject to different standards as we do humans? In that case, is it right to make their owners liable, as we do make parents liable for the acts of the children or pets? Or do we make them liable? But then if we do, then we are imposing on them equal standards that we impose upon ourselves. So we treat them as people, and they may have to have rights. So we recognize agreements between people, again, because we recognize their agency, their free will, their autonomy, their consciousness. Will an AI who, for all intents and purposes, is conscious, be allowed to enter in a contract? Can we love an AI? Can we marry an AI? These are just questions that we might have to answer. So the second scenario, we create an AI and AI becomes our tool. Again, this scenario will definitely have no rights because they are tools, they are properties. They do our bidding. But again, the issue is, what if they acquire consciousness? Do we own them? What happens to the works? Do we own their works? Will they have personalities to own their works? So yeah, that's an issue. And number three, what if AI and humans form a symbiotic relationship? In this case, AI may be treated equally with rights, but what will their status be? Will they have personality? So in Saudi Arabia, there's Sophia, who has been granted citizenship. We don't know right now what this implies, but the question is, can she vote or marry? Can she be murdered? Does she have to pay taxes? Does she qualify for benefits? Will they have responsibilities? Can they say no when they are drafted in case of war? Will you be considered a parent? Can they adopt? Will having a parent still be relevant? And then the last scenario is when AI becomes us, when we merge with the machines, or when we are able to improve our own software and hardware, as in Max Tegmark's Life 3.0, which is what I think is happening now. We may gradually be transforming ourselves into AI. We are gradually merging with AI. Our cell phones, for example, have become parts of us. Any tool we use has become extensions of us. Think of Gamora's sister, Nebula, in Guardians of the Galaxy. In that scenario, we may be probably, of course, we will be retaining our rights, but certain ideas may become too old-fashioned to make related laws obsolete. Like, for example, privacy, we talk about it, intellectual property, personhood, marriage. Many of the values we hold dear now because we know we are mortals. But in the scenario, when we become AI with greater to infinite lifespan, will procreation still be relevant? Will marriage still be relevant? Will it still be something that needs to be protected in several jurisdictions' constitutions? So as a conclusion, and I say this to everyone, every issue in AI turns into a metaphysical question. We will always have to go back to what it means to be us. Can we apply the theory of mind to AI? Little differences are important. When we think of AI that looks like us, think like us, the fact of their artificialness may not be little though, but it will require us to examine our values, our will, our agency, and even our own existence. So unfortunately for us, we may be forced to contend with these questions that used to be just topics in our theory class or in our philosophy course. Questions like, what does it mean to be human, and what is consciousness, will eventually have a practical impact. So yeah, that's it.
Oh, trying to unmute myself. Thanks, Francis, so much. I have got pages and pages and pages. of notes and questions that I won't put out now. I might put a couple of questions forward in a minute. Does anyone have any questions? I have one that's come in here, but from David Kong. His question is, Francis, will there be a global privacy law applicable to AI in the near future? That was my question. Thanks, David. So
A good privacy law. So the scenario that I'm actually thinking is that in the future, with AI in the future, I'm thinking of, as I've said before, network societies where privacy may actually not be relevant anymore, because again, we are valuing privacy now because we are so accustomed to liberal values. And I'm not saying that privacy for me personally isn't important, but this is the scenario that I am envisioning in the future of AI, that it is possible that privacy may no longer be relevant in the future because of how connected we are, or we will be.
Wow, that's wow. So
that's a big statement, and I may be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. There's another question here. It's kind of based on the other question that was just asked. Basically, will it be universal law, or will it be based per country, like country by country, for privacy law? So that's the next question.
What is the next question again?
The next question kind of extends on from that last one, and it says, will it be universal law, or will it be based per country?
For privacy law?
Yes.
Okay, so right now, so each country has a privacy law, but I think with this type of law, and with the speed of globalization, and with the speed by which we are being connected as a species, I think it will be a universal law, or it is more possible, and that privacy law be applied using international law or using treaties.
On going on from that, then, is, say, for example, the United Nations the international law regulation body in this area at the moment, or is there another one, or is there? Can you hear me?
What? Excuse
Sorry.
me?
So in regards to the universal law with privacy, is there an international body that oversees that at the moment? Say, for example, the United Nations? Or...
No. It's per country right now that oversees violations of privacy.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any more questions for Francis? I have one. Where is it? Where do you, in your research and your experience and knowledge, where do you see the most work is being done with regards to, so from the law perspective, in the law industry, where's the most work that's being focused on right now that you see?
So right now, the people are clamoring, or there is a debate, right? So the debate is whether or not AI will be beneficial for us, and on the other side, whether they will annihilate us. And then there is this one, another side, the third side, which says that we should be doing something to prevent. We recognize that AI have good sides and bad sides, but we should be doing something to at least prevent AI from taking over the world, from exterminating the human species. So I think we're going towards that direction.
Yeah.
Because why would we want AI to take over us? So yeah, I think there are societies right now that are trying to focus on protecting us from all possibilities that can be thought of in order to prevent AI from destroying our species.
Yes, all power to and sometimes I feel that regulation is needed. And I'm usually opposed to regulation, but in situations like this, I think it's a very important issue to really discuss at the forefront. Absolutely.
Yes.
Just one more question I think we have time for now. Just one more. The question is, if AI fails big time, if AI fails big time alive,
big time affecting lives are the humans behind will be punishable by human law? Or is there current law? Okay, so so here's the thing, any issue related to AI is speculative because we don't have right now, so AI is something that will happen in the future, meaning lawmakers haven't even talked about it. Most lawmakers we don't have laws on AI, which is why this is the reason why we really need to talk about AI so that we can, all of us can contribute to policy making. Not just one person can think of all the scenarios, all the possibilities that can happen. And in that case, so we can protect ourselves. So with regards to your question, if AI fails big time affecting lives, I think that is something that will have to be discussed by the policymakers or by everyone. And we should clamor again. We should clamor for protection from the possibilities or the danger posed by AI. And some people say that, we're not in danger from AI because they are our creations. We don't know for sure because AI, again, is something that is happening in the future. And right now, all we can do is put on all the protections needed so that all scenarios will be covered. So with regard to whether or not there already a law, I don't think that right now there's a law on AI. Yes, of course, it is affecting, I think it has the potential to affect all sectors, even the creative sector, although I think creativity is something that may be difficult to replicate in AI. So based on what I have read or what what I have talked about with some people, I think that it's important to develop skills or related to creativity, something that cannot be replicated easily by AI. So yes, IT sector may be affected, but then again, all sectors may be affected. Even the legal sector may be affected. Yeah, everyone will be affected.
So true. Okay, I think we'll wrap it up there. That's time. So once again, thank you so much, Frances, for your time today and that wealth of knowledge you have there. All the best, and once again, thank you very much, and thanks to everyone for coming in. Peter, are you still there?
Yep. Yeah. Sorry. Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter, for your help and for getting Frances on board with us. It's a wonderful, wonderful presentation.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. So sayonara, everybody, and thanks again, Frances. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you. Bye. Bye.